I've seen people go from stagnation to suddenly the money flows again. They get out of their own way. And part of that is realizing it's your fault. They sometimes come as a victim and then they leave as a survivor. A lack of self-worth. This is a common theme, male, female. Oftentimes been put in there without us realizing we've had some trauma or somebody said something we've experienced maybe decades ago. You need to make sure, you know that phrase, careful what you wish for. Ask yourself why you're pursuing this thing in order to be able to pursue it relentlessly. What are they trying to prove? Who are they proving it to? What do they actually want? And unpack that first.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now let's get it started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I am your host today. And in our studio, we have Curtis Rivers. How are you today, sir?
Really good. Top of the world. Thanks for having me, Rick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, you're going to enjoy the show today. This is going to be one of those where it's just like, how did that happen kind of show. So before we get into it though, if you haven't done it already, I would be grateful if you like, subscribe, hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. And without further ado, let's get to it. So Curtis, stuntman turned professional guy. Can you give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
So Curtis Rivers, a former award-winning movie stuntman, member of the Hollywood Stuntman's Hall of Fame, which is unusual because you can tell by the accent that I'm British, but I'm a member of the Hollywood Stuntman's Hall of Fame. 2 times Guinness World Record holder and author of the award-winning book, The Fearless Path. And I help people who are feeling flat, anxious, or stuck in a life that no longer fits for them, you know? So I help them to reimagine, realign, and reignite their path to freedom, purpose, and authenticity.
Love it, love it, love it. So our audience, a lot of these folks are entrepreneurs. They've been at it for a while. They've been, through, the fun stage of running a company. It's like, hey, I got this great idea, and, they're into it and things get hard. What do you want people to get out of this episode today?
I'd like to get them to realize that if it was a key message, that it's never too late. It's a bit cliched, but as an entrepreneur myself, we can get into that, the various multiple sources of income that I've employed over the years and lots of great ideas and that journey where it's like the old analogy of digging for gold, where we're almost about to give up on the face of the digging in the mine but the gold is just a few feet away, and many turn away and leave that, and I've experienced that myself. I've been the person to turn away and leave that and then learn from that. And I've been the person that just keeps on going and going and going and never, ever gives up. That tenacity has been key in my life. So definitely the message is never give up. It is never, ever too late.
Yeah. That's a great one. Where does that come from? Where does that message or that way of living, I guess I might say, come from in you?
I grew up thinking in my kind of late teens, early 20s, that I was just really stubborn, because the amount of times people had said that to me, like, gosh, like, you're just relentless. Like, you just won't give in, will you? And so I, took on that limiting belief. I guess I'm just stubborn. I must have got that from one of my parents or family, And over the years, I've realized it isn't stubbornness. It's tenacity. And there's a big difference, I find, between being a stubborn person and somebody who picks himself up off the ground, which I experienced a lot as a stuntman over the years.
Yeah.
Because it hurt the last time, and it hurts because you've just done the take, but you dig deep within and you have that tenacity to get up, dust yourself down, and just stare down the barrel of the gun and say, go for it, do it again. Come on, I've got this. I actually found out by the time I was in my 30s that the driving force was my father, because we didn't really get on. We were like chalk and cheese growing up. He was the tough guy. And even though I had to become that and wear the tough guy mask, really as a child, I was growing up, he wanted me to go out and play soccer and play with the other kids. And eventually, as I became a young man, he wanted me to go down the bars and pubs and clubs and drink and fight. Yeah. And just what the real me was sat at home as a child, looking through a telescope, reading books. I loved the library and learning and just inquisitive. And I was like a gentle soul. Still am, really. The real me is kind and caring, There was a time where he grabbed me by the lapels and threatened me with his fist. And he said, that was nothing. And you will amount to nothing. Pushed me down, it was my early 20s. And it stuck with me for years, subconsciously, that, that limiting belief that I am nothing. I will never amount to anything. So during my stunt training, every time I thought of giving in, say I was doing a martial arts grading, there was a lot involved in the stunt training.
Mm-hmm.
I had to become a martial artist, like a black belt in several martial arts. Sometimes at a grading where I needed to win 3 fights, maybe I won 2 and only drew 1. And it was going
Mm-hmm.
to take me another 3 months before the next grading. And my heart sank. At those times, I thought, maybe this isn't for me. I just can't keep going on. I'm a human being. It took me 7 years to train to be a stuntman. In those times, those mornings where I got up and thought, maybe my dad was right. And I think, oh, really? We'll see.
Yeah.
And that was the driving force. Ultimately, that little boy wanted to be loved. And when I kept going, and I was breaking world records, I'd break a world record and then I'd go on to do another one. And somebody'd say, when are you going to stop? This has been a dream for years. You've finally done it. Why choose another? When are you going to stop? And I didn't know because really I was looking for my father's approval. That's what I would learn in my 30s. That tenacity came from the wanting to be seen, really.
Wow. So it wasn't something that was ingrained into you. This was something that you used in order to kind of prove a point. Am I
Yeah,
understanding
I
that
think
correctly?
it began that way.
Mhm.
And you learn these things, see the results, and then you can apply those, that tenacity applied correctly with the right energy in business. Then you know when to give up, when to split test, retest, go back to redress things, look at those figures, get back to the spreadsheet. There's a time to do that, to reassess, but not to give in, to go back and mindfully.
That mindful tenacity. That's brilliant. What was a time? What was an example of a time when perhaps you went too far? You're kind of looking back and be like, I didn't have to experience all that in order to, get where I am.
There's so many occasions, where I should have bit my tongue, so to speak. I was too vocal. Or one skill I've learned, another skill over the years. Touched on mindfulness. Then
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mindful person. The ability to put that little pause in, to respond rather than to react, to respond from that mindful place, having processed that, nervous system is calm, a mindful response rather than a knee-jerk reaction. That's primal, fight or flight. The younger man would be a little bit vocal. Again, didn't suffer fools gladly. A little bit of that would have come from my upbringing and my father's input. But as, age and wisdom kick in and it's not my first rodeo, just learn to slow things down and to not take everything personal. And you realize we're all winging it in a way. We're all, you grow up as a child thinking all the grown-ups have it figured out. And then you get into adulthood and you think, oh, them older business people, they got it all sorted. They haven't. On a certain level, we're all still figuring things out, just at a different level as we evolve, and we never stop growing. It's a journey, right, with no destination.
Is there a particular story that comes to mind?
Well, with
respect to not knowing when you needed to stop and then reassess and do something different.
Yeah, there's just stories like in filming, where I could have handled things differently, where I've literally just said, okay, that's me done then. And I've switched the radio off, handed that in. It's a very expensive workplace. I'm running the shop floor, but I've been in a situation where it was getting dangerous. There's a line in the sand. An actor, a director want to cross that line.
Mm-hmm,
And in some ways, some people would say, well, you're right to walk off, but I could have done it in a different way. I was terrible for burning bridges in my youth. I wouldn't think of the repercussions. One that comes to mind, a method actor driving a car around. He had a stunt double. He thought it was great to take cocaine on set just for an authentic experience on camera.
Yeah.
But he was going to be driving. I overheard that. Did you say you were having a few lines? No. And side-eye. And I was watching his behavior. That guy's going nowhere near a car. And then they distracted me checking the monitor for something else. Next minute he's in the car, like, whoa, what's going on? And he shot off. Lucky an accident didn't happen. So that's a situation where, I was very vocal, let's say, handed the radio in, left that movie. Other things happened with the guy who replaced me, but everybody in that project, for example, I would obviously never work with them again. And at the time I'd think, fine, good riddance. I don't want to work with people like that. That is a little part of it, but I've done that on such a big scale over the years. Going back decades, I'm not like that now, but those were the early years. And you can apply that to entrepreneurship, with suppliers and contacts and funders. And, there's a definite way to be the bigger person and to, like you say, mindfully respond to that and, not react in that way.
Yeah. I remember as a younger man, I was in the restaurant industry, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I was a vendor that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do or something like that. And I just remember just being like, and I usually don't. I'm usually a very calm person, but this guy drove me to the point where I'm like slamming the phone down. You know how like we had those phones that were like on the desk, and you get like that satisfaction of hanging up on somebody.
The clunk.
So it was one of those situations. How do you learn that? How do you learn to kind of just like really kind of just step back and say, hey, you know what, I can handle this differently? What was your process like?
It comes from things like away from the film set, such as the breathing techniques. And this was this split from Stuntman to Soul Guide. This occurred for this reason, was that I alluded to it earlier with being that child in the bedroom, studious, reading books and quite happy doing that, The person I became, or the mask I had to wear, being the tough guy stuntman running the floor, very, very in control in a very kind of alpha male environment and later kind of toxic workplace. To rule the roost there, I was a different person. So meanwhile, away from the film set, I was into meditation, reading, study, mindfulness, yoga, all those kind of things. I was a bit woo away from the set in private.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
coming in, putting the baseball cap on and doing that. So it was within those things in my private life, techniques to reset the nervous system, breathing techniques that would then bleed into the stunt career. So if I was frightened before a stunt, I'm a human being, you still get nerves, you're about to jump off a building, then it would be those techniques I was learning away from the film set that I would then employ. So I had a double life where I would go away and learn these different techniques, and I'd be going on yoga retreats. And I trained to be an NLP practitioner and got into emotional freedom technique. Just no clients at the time, just for my own. They would then use breathing to calm my nervous system. And that then helps just slow the mind down into that calm place where you're really listening, not waiting for your turn to speak. You're listening on a real deep level to people's hopes, desires on a film. So what does the director want? Listening to what the fears the actor has in his character, really trying to listen carefully to get the best, safest result for everybody. And when you're in that place of deep connection and deep listening, you're in that calm, chilled out place. And when somebody throws a surprise tantrum or says something, wow, okay. That knee-jerk reaction isn't there. It would take 5 or 6 back-to-back to even get into that back-to-the-wall situation. Because there's a place for that fight or flight that does come in handy at times. That's why it's there. But there are no saber-toothed tigers hiding in the bushes anymore, so we don't quite need it as quick to get the adrenaline and the heart pumping. So that's how it was, that tenacity and the desire never to give as a stuntman. And those practical skills then also apply in business too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, I'd love to lean into that woo woo, as we call it, because I mean, we do have team members, employees, we have vendors, we have customers that are like saber-tooth tigers, periodically, and we do have to manage them. We do, and not just manage them, but manage ourselves. What happens sometimes, and we could start, at the quote unquote high level at breathing techniques. What's perhaps the science behind it? Is this less of a fad and really something that would help us to get into a better place, when we're dealing with some of these situations that are out of our control?
Yeah, sure. In terms of the basics and the science of it, a lot of people going real back to basics don't even breathe correctly in terms of they breathe out of their mouth. And I learned this, 35, 40 years ago, training to be an actor. A thing called intercostal diaphragmatic breathing. And it's a really fancy way of saying you breathe in through your nose and you breathe, you fill from the belly first and then the lungs. So all actors who are trained actors learn this. And I'd never even thought of it. Early 20s. What do you mean you're meant to breathe through the nose? Yeah, you got hairs in there to filter dirt and you're meant to breathe in through the nose. And I would later learn that in meditation too. Very different thing, So just that ability to put your hands on your belly and to breathe in, and your hands should rise before your chest. A lot of people don't do that. So that intercostal breathing, that's the first thing towards this. And then there's a myriad of different counts where you breathe in for a certain count, you pause for a certain few seconds, and then you release. So what's at play here? It's a mechanism. There's a connection between your mind and your nervous system. There's kind of like an overlap, and we're operating in there. So you want to get out of like the really old part, they call it the reptilian part of your brain at the back of the spine where it connects. And you want to employ more of your frontal cortex and that kind of activity.
What does that do? What does that do for us?
Well, it's about being present and being the opposite. It's disconnecting those switches that will say, there's a saber-toothed tiger, get ready to run. You're going to fight or flight. Raise the heartbeat, increase cortisol, increase the adrenaline. Let's fire some adrenaline in there and get you all hyped up. In other words, the things that make you angry and snappy. Who are you talking to? And in certain situations, squaring up ready for battle or wherever that might be, right?
Is it just
You
a
don't need that.
distraction, or is it just a distraction, or is there something that's happening? I don't know, neurologically.
Neurologically, the breathing then, if you were to monitor, if you put all of the probes on the mind, just by several rounds of breathing, and it's not hyperventilating. I'm literally talking about a sharp inhale through the nose for 4 seconds, holding it for 7, and then a slower breathe out, 8 or 9 seconds. That's it. A couple of those. I do it before I go on a podcast, rushing in, sit down, do a couple of rounds of that, and it just calms the nervous system. If you saw that on that monitor, you see the activity go from the fight or flight part of the brain, moved forward towards the frontal cortex. It's a different part of the brain. And so it's employing that more human, calm part of the brain, more rational. Because it's oftentimes very illogical. If you thought about it, you wouldn't shout at that person. You wouldn't slam that phone down for that nice clunk noise. You wouldn't do these things if you can just thought for a moment. How many times have we said something and walked away and thought, why did I say that? Or wish I hadn't said that, Much better to just put that little, that's all it takes as well, like 2 or 3 seconds gap between, instead of reacting so we can respond.
I like that. It's kind of like that advanced intellect that we as human beings have. We're able to take that step back, take the breath, reset, and then move forward. You used the term a couple of times, reset your nervous system. It's one of those terms I hear happening, hear occurring a lot. And for someone that's not, I'll use the term woo-woo, that's not woo-woo or is running away from that, let's say, what is it, and how does that, what is its real impact?
You're right. It's becoming more and more of a buzzword. Again, I see this mention of nervous system. It's been around forever. So in layman's terms, all it is really is there are certain things that happen in your body. You and I are talking now, your heart is beating. You're not consciously thinking, I must keep that going at so many beats per second, right? Your lungs are inflating. When you're trained, they will inflate all by themselves from your belly and then your mid-chest and upper chest. Nice deep breaths. I breathe, 4 times a minute when I'm meditating, just really slow and slow everything down. Your body is doing that, or your nervous system is doing that behind the scenes like an autopilot. And that's where that crossover is, because it's partly your subconscious mind is running everything in the background, it's connected, and it's part of that. And that's all it is. So it's already popular in certain circles. A lot of people these days are aware of subconscious programming, affirmations, visualizations, that's crept into entrepreneurship. We kind of know that we have our beliefs and those shape our actions, and our actions ultimately create success in business or not,
Yeah.
And all aspects of life, really. So there's that element, but there is that connection also with the nervous system where that bleeds down. And so that autonomous system that keeps you breathing in and out, even though you're reading a book, part of your eyes are scanning for predators or somebody coming towards you, a bus flying towards you that's mounted a curb. Even if your eyes are in the book, your ears, all your senses are involved. That's your nervous system in this context. And just left unchecked, just to auto run. If you're somebody, whether you've got ADHD or you're just hyper, you've just had a couple of Red Bulls, energy drink, whatever, you're not helping that. Your nerves can be fried, lack of sleep, things like that. Some people too much caffeine, anything that has a negative effect on you, you're not performing at your best.
Yeah.
So what appears to be woo is actually the realization that the oxygenation of the human body in certain patterns can slow down and reframe. And that in itself brings the nervous system to where it should be. If you weren't drinking Red Bull and caffeine, and if you were getting a good sleep, and that's all it is. It's resetting to what it should be.
Okay. So it's almost like we're bringing the body back to stasis. So our heartbeat, our breath, our visualization, et cetera, we're more present is the term that you used. It's the term that you used earlier. Does that sound about right?
It's very right. I mean, the presence and the mindfulness to take that a step further. That is, in business, we spend a lot of our time, if you think about it, if you're thinking purely in a business mind, you're sat in an office, you're either thinking of what you did last week, well, that went well, or those sales were better, what caused that? So that in the future, we're going to do this, we're going to roll this out next week. Not many people are pausing to enjoy the moment in the present. How much of a businessman or entrepreneur's day is spent looking around them thinking, I did this. This is awesome. This is great. I always wanted to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that. I'll take a time, like at least 3 times a day, to just stop. I have this thing where I know, because I've done it many times, I know a future version of myself is looking back, remembering. and thinking that was great that time. So I've just come back from New York. I mentioned before we came on. There's a future version of myself that's going, remember that time we were doing that big illusion show and there was a car on fire by the side of the East River? And that was awesome. So knowing that, when I was there last week, I paused for a moment. I looked around. I'm being paid a ton of money to be here. Like people would settle, give their right arm to be here. And yet here I am.
Mm.
And it just brings everything in. It's like, yeah, life's good. Right. Where were we? Pick a radio and you're energized. You're enjoying it, and it makes life fun because too many people are like stuck in the past with regrets or stuck in the future planning this. And before they know it, the years have rolled on and what's it really all about? So it's the same as that. So just to be present, to be mindful, that is doing that. The mind is present, looking around, soaking it all up. And just for that mind, body and soul for that moment is just aligned and in a good place. And it's only good for you. There's nothing negative ever about doing it. So why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah. What occurs to me is the idea of memorializing, some of these moments, like you said, looking at the companies, like I built this company or I built this, this podcast or whatever it is. And, perhaps having some visual tool representation that says, hey, we did, XYZ. We interviewed Curtis Rivers. Yes. Get a picture, sign autograph or something like that. I mean, I see the benefit of that. Is this you said you do it 3 times a day. Is this a habit that you've developed? Is this something that you just realized that you needed to do? Is this something that you work with your clients on? What do you recommend to our listeners?
So I do this kind of thing with my clients. And it's a mixture because partly you want to immerse the subconscious mind. That part I mentioned earlier, that's looking around, looking for that danger.
Yeah.
It's also taking something, and you can have a positive affirmation behind your monitor. And even if you're working away, a part of your brain is taking that in.
Yeah.
But again, it's about being in the present, not I can't wait to double my money next year, or because that's always in the future. Not, wasn't it great when I made $1 million 2 years ago? It's kind of been and gone. It's irrelevant, right? All that matters really is what's now. An affirmation, I'm so happy and grateful that I make X amount of million a year, wherever you earn, that figure can be a little bit more than's actually in your bank account. Now it's irrelevant. Your subconscious is seeing that and certain things, places, situations, synchronicities. I've been doing this for decades and proving it absolutely beyond doubt. Now, I raised an eyebrow when I first got into this, but I've tested it to destruction and it's led to me writing books, breaking world records and working on some great movies and things. And I'm the most ordinary, basic person you could ever meet. I'm absolutely nothing special.
Yeah.
More than anyone else. And yet, like everyone else, I've got a pair of hands to go out there, the ability to graft, tenacity to not give up. But I've learned all of these different techniques that anyone can do. They're not difficult. It just requires the desire to do it. Do you really, really want that thing? This is a conversation early days. What is it you really want, Because you can talk to somebody, well, I want that house with that swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted that car, can never seem to get it. I want, and after a 10-minute conversation, but why do you want that car? Why do you want that house?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of this, this, and this. But why this? And it comes down to actually they want freedom. That's what they want.
Yeah.
The other things are symbols. So cut that out. And I'm so happy and grateful to enjoy this freedom. That could be an affirmation. Back that up with images because some people are very auditory. Some people are very visual, some more kinesthetic, touchy-feely. And so I work with clients and we just recharge their complete subconscious system. So it's like software running in the background. They need updates.
Yeah.
So periodic updates, just like your cell phone does. And it works away in the background and things start to change quite rapidly. Your beliefs change. And therefore your feelings change as a result. You have the thoughts that they affect different feelings. So your actions by default are different. Somebody going out into the world and grafting and putting in the work in an aligned way can only bring in aligned results and their life transforms quite quickly.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was not a believer in affirmations for a very, very long time. And I found myself, I think it was like last year, I started, just writing them down. And it came from a perspective of gratefulness, just thankful for a certain thing, for a number of different things. And the interesting thing that happened is it crept into my language, into the way that I was speaking and the way that I was responding to things. And I was really surprised by that. I was really taken back. It was just like, wow, what have I been missing out on, first and foremost, but it's a really, really powerful tool. one of the things, and I'd love for you to perhaps expand on this, but one of the things I found, or one of the things that was important to me, is authenticity. Meaning that I don't want to go through and just say the same things, by rote every single time, because then it just becomes, I suspect that it would become less powerful for me. And so sometimes I find myself, ad-libbing a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So there's two elements. So there's the conscious part of your mind would spot that. And this is feeling rote. Because we've been saying the same thing every day for the last so many months. It's becoming, it has no meaning. Now, you're okay with that. Your subconscious mind doesn't care. Your subconscious mind doesn't know right and wrong, light and dark. It takes it literally. So that's why you would never say in an affirmation, I'm so glad I'm not broke, because all your subconscious mind hears is broke. So that's a scarcity mindset. That's already running in a lot of people. So I'm grateful that, money flows to me on a regular basis from multiple sources. I'm so happy and grateful that the money flows through me so that I can help other people make a difference in this world. I see things like that as a big infinity symbol. In my mind, and I close my eyes and I literally visualize. I actually visualize emojis, give my secrets away. So I'll imagine like a little heart emojis flowing to me. That's people being really thankful for the way I help a lot of people, but it flows through me in that infinity. And I'm thankful too, I'm really grateful to help. I want to do things. I look every day for ways that I can help people, so I look for that. So I'm happy to be helping people. And then it flows around, and then emojis might turn to little dollar signs and pound signs in England, where people are paying me money, and I'm graciously paying money forward to charities and to other people and helping the people less fortunate. I want to do that. I'm looking for opportunities. Who can I help and support? And these people are enabling that. So everyone, we're all, you're breathing it all in, you're breathing it all out, all that gratitude flows to you and you flow it all back out into the universe, So you're in this complete infinity symbol. So in terms of keeping it fresh, affirmations read in the background by your subconscious, they can stay the same all the time. There could be a poster, post-it notes, that kind of thing. When you're reading them out, because you're conscious of that, you can mix it up. And what it is one of the key things when you read it consciously is you're trying to evoke a feeling. So I put together little slideshows that I read as part of my morning routine. I press play. I'm attracting a place in a different country at the moment, like a villa with a pool and a nice view. And to some people, would eye roll? Yeah, of course you are. But you and I will talk in a few years, and I'll do a podcast from that poolside, because I've been doing it so long, I know it works, and it's a powerful thing. I'm evoking the feeling. I'll put little notes on so I can smell the chlorine in that photograph of the pool. I look at a door in the background of a photo and imagine that goes through to the kitchen. So I can feel the heat of that wooden patio as I walk into that kitchen on my soles and my feet as I go in. And each thing I do, every photo, so there's a photo of a kitchen with the sun in the background. I've got a photo of some stairs and going up to these rooms. And I've, mentally walked up those stairs so many times that I feel like the carpet between my toes almost. And so you emotionally get involved. And all it is a feeling of, this is great. Thank you, to whatever's greater than yourself, whether that's religion, spirituality, whatever it is you perceive to be great. And you say, thank you. This is great. And it's all going to be paid forward. It's just, we are allowed to have nice things. We do a lot of good. Hopefully what we do makes the world a better place in some way. And that's our recompense to be happy doing so. So you can be grateful for that.
I like that concept of flowing. I found that I've found, a similar, conclusion where it's just like, you hold on to all the money or, whatever that is. And it tends to slow down, but, just kind of letting it flow, through, and it tends to move. As long as you're doing the things you're supposed to do. I thought that was really remarkable. It was, again, I got to experience that. That was something that, I was skeptical about. And then it's just like, wow, this is really interesting. Let me, continue. One of the things that I'm finding interesting on my journey is like, when I look to the future, it's kind of, it's almost like Bilbo Baggins or Frodo Baggins, where it's just like, I don't know where the journey's going to go. You know what I mean? I've got my mission and I'm going to keep moving, keep putting one foot in front of the other. But, there's not that poolside, somewhere in the future where I'm just like, okay, I know exactly what it's going to look like. And, sometimes, I wonder, I'm not afraid of this, just to be clear, but, sometimes I wonder if I should have more grounding, towards, what that future looks like. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would throw that back at you and say, how do you feel when you describe that Bilbo Baggins? How do you feel when you think that you're not crystal clear on what your future's like? Is that exciting or is it worrying? Where does that land with you?
It's exciting for me. It's exciting for me. It's interesting because I think that there are certain people that want me to make certain commitments to them, and I won't make the commitments because I don't know where the journey's going to go. You know?
So it's great. No, so the reason I asked that, because I'm the same. I have a certain flow in that direction career wise
Hmm.
where I don't know where it's going to go. And I find that exciting. You know, I've just finished on a TV show that a year ago I wouldn't have thought I've done. Some friends that I'd worked with years ago had a project. Would I like to be involved? I've slept on it and thought about it. It made me excited. You know what? Okay.
Hmm.
I have a situation. I'm blessed to be able to press an off button and finish with some clients. Usually
Yeah.
take clients on like an 8-week journey. So I can press stop, finish that 8-week journey with them, and then fly to a different country and work on something fun, get back, have a little stretch, and then press play again and inflow these people to help. And, I'm in control of that. As we all are, really. We're in control of our destiny.
Yeah.
And it's by design. So I'm excited because I don't know. I know I'll work on some filming things in the future, much
Hmm.
less than I'm doing coaching. Will I write another book? Probably. It's all really exciting. So long as that's the case, then what you're putting out to the universe is one of excitement and flow and being connected and willing to bend, during the tough times like a tree,
Yeah.
to spring back, not to resist, just to let go. And
Yeah.
going back to your earlier thing, that's pivotal for a lot of entrepreneurs. As entrepreneurs, we've all experienced that feast or famine, we've borrowed oftentimes to get things going. We've dealt with the naysayers, this will never work, and we're trying to prove them wrong. And then it's starting to go well, but not maybe as well as we thought. And oh
Hmm.
gosh, I've been doing this. Do I do this for another year? Some people are saying, give it up. It's a pipe dream. You've gave it a try, your best shot. And no, I want to do this. All these emotions, once the money flows, it's not unusual to grab onto it and hold onto it too tight.
Yeah.
And that, as you've found out, it causes it to stagnate. It's like a water analogy, it is flow. It's an energy. And you've got to look at it like that and look at it flowing to you and look at where you look downstream to where you allow that to flow to the little tributaries you create to help and make a difference in the world. Maybe yourself and your family and your extended family, your community, the bigger picture, and the more you do that, the more it's coming upstream and flowing to you. Any little damming you do to hoard and be greedy and you just, shooting yourself in the foot, it will just stagnate and slow down to maybe a drought. And you and I have both learned that the hard way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. If we weren't talking about money and we're talking about part of what I gathered from you in terms of helping out other people, that same energy that we're using to give to other people, I mean, is that still part of that infinity model where and I want to caution, my concern sometimes is that we focus on giving so that we can get rather than giving altruistically. So where does that fit into your thinking?
See, when you said that, I find that jarring. That's how far away from giving to receive I am. So that just comes over years of behaving in a certain way to know in some way I'll get something back. But in the same way that you mentioned, it's exciting not knowing aspects of your future journey. You're going with the flow and it's kind of exciting to see, will it go this way, that either way, you're on board and it'll be aligned because you're in tune and everything. In the same way, if I'm helping somebody out and I'm, giving my energy to that person, my love, my attention, I so want them to succeed. And the last thing on my mind is recompense, because I know, if it weren't to come from that person, it could come from something else. I've got so many income streams and ways of that energy flowing back to me.
Yeah.
And I get some really surprised. Sometimes it will dry up with clients at a certain time of the year, just out of the blue. And I think that's unexpected. I've not done anything different. But rather than panic, I'm like, okay, I've been given couple of weeks here to this is the time I need to rejig that website that I've been meaning to do, and it's a gift, so I'm not going to worry, it's coming, carry on, I'll do that, and I'll get an unexpected repeat fee, a residual, honestly, from a show that I did 20 years ago that I'd forgotten I even did. I'll get $9,000 will just drop in. There you go, thank you very much. That's that side, for a little while longer. So little bits and pieces come in, and after years and years of this, you kind of a wry smile and a twinkle in your eye, and it's all good. I don't give to receive.
Mm-hmm.
To the contrary, I actually probably do the other way. I'm always looking out and about. That thing of, if you've ever done it, where you pass somebody, I've done this where they've broken down, before most things were electric, and they haven't got, and you pull over, you okay, I've run out of fuel, but we haven't got a little jerry can. In the past, I've like, do you want to jump in and bear with me? What is it? I've driven to a garage, bought a jerry can, filled it, come back, filled it up. I'm not doing it to impress anyone. I'm not filming myself doing it for, social media. It's just no one knows. I know. That's the key thing. I know. And putting that fuel in, leaving them with the jerry can. Oh, don't you want it? Oh, no, you won't. Next time you run out, you'll have a jerry can. I was like, are you sure? Let me give you. No, honestly, it's fine. And you can see that there's no matter what color, creed, age, background you are, there's people get a lump in their throat. They feel moved and they're touched by the same source in that moment of like gratitude. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
I go out every day looking for that. Sometimes it's helping somebody who's homeless, or tipping a waitress who's been really good, generously. Just what can I do today to make the world a brighter place without being corny? And that is almost selfish. I love that feeling. So you could say there's a selfish element. I'm doing that because it makes me feel good. So it's the opposite of giving to receive.
Yeah, I hear you. I find myself doing the same thing. I love for people to feel seen. Just going out and say, hey, how you doing? Et cetera, et cetera. Give them the big, authentic smile. It's just like, hey, I see you. And then they get to take, I imagine they take that wherever else they're going. Their life is a little bit better. I think that's wonderful. I think it's beautiful to be able to arrive at that place, because the reality is you realize you're not on this planet on your own. You're just for your own existence. You're part of a bigger system. And you're not blocking that system from being productive. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm really curious, we've got, again, our audience, these are entrepreneurs, and I'm really curious if you have a story about perhaps an entrepreneur that came to you that, I'm going to use the term stuck, an entrepreneur that came to you that was stuck, in whatever place in life they were, where you kind of guided them through to a better place and gave them the tools that they need so they can, really graduate from working with you.
Lots.
Of course.
Lots of, looking for common themes would be, strangely enough, and you would think there's no relation, but a lack of self-worth. And you'd think, what has that got to do with it? But this is a common theme, male, female. It doesn't matter. Different age groups that I've had of entrepreneurs that I've worked with, managing directors, and some big players as well. You'd be surprised who, in confidence come to me and we'll chat through, and you think, gosh. And when it whittles down to the basics, it's for various reasons, but a lack of self-worth that can be worked on because there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
I do hypnosis, that kind of thing. I've got different tools in order. It doesn't matter which tool it is. You're doing the same thing as going into that subconscious mind. That has a knock-on effect to the nervous system, but it's not all about that. For me, my key thing is to go in and jiggle that programming that's working. Yeah. Sometimes we've been put in there without us realizing we've had some trauma, or somebody said something, we've experienced something. It could be decades ago. And just that ability to put on a brave face in business, and, I've had men there with that mentality to man up, that thing kicks in of being a man means to be tough and, a ball breaker, as it were, where I work with them in a way. The things that I've learned is like a balancing of the masculine and the feminine. And that might sound a bit strange, but, there are feminine qualities that are really beneficial, whatever your sex, for males and females. And likewise, there's a time to be strong and firm and have that masculine strength. Yeah. And then there are times to be soft and gentle and kind and listen. And to me, a well-rounded individual balances both in almost equal measure and can drift either way between that middle ground, So we work in that area, and within that balancing out process comes the realization, like, of course you're worthy. Of course you're worth it,
Yeah.
Just by removing that limiting belief, I've seen people go from stagnation to suddenly the money flows again. They get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And part of that is realizing, and it's quite harsh to say this, to look at you in the eye and say it, but it's your fault. No matter what situation they've come to me with, they sometimes come as a victim, and then they leave as a survivor. It doesn't matter what they've gone through. It's their fault because they said yes to that thing, or they stuck around for way too long in that situation. Yeah. Or they went to that thing in the first place. Ultimately, when you unpack it, they have to take responsibility because we create our own world, our own life. And rather than that sound harsh, the realization is like mind-blowing. When they wake up and have that epiphany of like, gosh, he's right. I did say. But that means if I'm in control, then I can do and be anything if I put my heart and soul into it. So yeah, I accept that. So that victim mentality is dropped. If it's a bad thing they've been through, they're a survivor. That's way more positive. I survived that, and this is who I am now. And I've taken all them things, and I'm using them as powerful tools now to help others avoid similar pitfalls. And I'm going to use them to move forward with strength and in alignment, you know?
Mm-hmm. What happens? I'm reading into this. This is observational. This isn't anything that I've read about. But what happens when you work with someone that defines themselves, by their trauma? This happened to me, and every conversation, this thing happened to me. This thing happened to me, and it's like this thing happened to me, so I, always respond this certain way. How do you work with people? How do people come out of that place?
It's the journey is similar, but it has variations, because I can see early days, because it's not my first rodeo. I can see this in their language early on, like literally on the first session. You can't just come out and say, "Hey, stop. Enough of that. You're not a victim." So this is where this NLP comes in, the neuro-linguistic programming. So there's a method. It can be used actually in a manipulative way if you're wired. Certain people in corporate business have used it, for gain. But when applied in a loving way, in a kind way, you gain rapport with somebody by mirroring their actions, their tonality, their voice. And at a certain point, you will then change your posture and tonality and observe it change in them, which means you've made a connection. As you speak to that person consciously, you're saying certain things to their subconscious. It sounds bizarre, but say I said to a client, I want you to do this, this, and this because you are worthy at the end of the day. In that sentence, I said, I want you to do this, this, and this because, and then I put a micro pause in there before I said the phrase, you are worthy. And then I carried it on. You didn't perceive that, but if you played this back, that's what I just did. So little commands, that's what the subconscious listens to. I'm simplifying it, but by dropping in key phrases, it starts to get soaked up, unbeknown to the person that you're speaking to. So they'll wake up and just feel ever so slightly better the next day. It's very, very subtle. So there's little things like that to begin with. And then I work, going back to the woo, I work on an energetic level. I work on the meridians, and there's a thing called EFT tapping, seeing people tapping on. Again, I was very skeptical when I began that, and it's transformational. I've done it in my own life.
Wow.
Incredible for getting rid of. Turns out, who knew that certain traumatic experiences are stored in our bodies. And energetically, our bodies go, exceed beyond our physical tissues. And we can contain certain dense, reactions, emotions energetically there, right?
Yeah.
And held for long enough, they can materialize in the physical body as ailments, aches, pains.
Yeah.
So you can actually, again, using these various techniques, let go of that. And this is much quicker in my experience than NLP, which can be a series of sessions, usually if NLP people will say something different. In my experience, it can be 3 or 4 sessions if it's pure NLP to get somebody reprogrammed, rid of their limiting belief and to replace that with a positive one. EFT, I've done it in 40 minutes in one session, and it's forever. It's not like putting a Band-Aid on something that will forever be gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. You've just let go and released that dead, stagnant energy, and it's gone. So going back to your initial question, you want to hold their hand from being the victim to taking ownership, realizing they're a survivor and that thing happened in the past, which is already gone. Breathe deeply and to enjoy the present where they've survived that. That's not them. It doesn't define them. They're actually way better than that. They are worthy and they're in charge. So what do you want to do? What kind of life do you want? Let's set about creating that right now. And it gets exciting again.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I mean, they don't know, they're not familiar with that version of themselves that's not associated with, whatever they experienced. And so it's just like, how do they become, what does their journey look like at that point? So thank you for answering that question.
No, it's all right. It's within. It's the truth. It's cheesy. It's corny. The answer's within, but it is. It's usually like layer after layer of armor that I have to strip away. Well, I don't. I encourage the client to. The client does the work.
Yeah.
I can open the door. They have to walk through. They're stripping away the armor, removing that mask, sometimes several masks, having a good cry, and the real them has been there all along. Frightened, and when that's exposed and the daylight hits their real selves again. As an adult, it's liberating. It's effortless because when I was that stuntman putting on that act, that took a lot of energy, It took effort to be that person. It's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be at home, sat with my feet up or doing my thing. It was exhausting doing that, like pretending to be somebody else. So when you let that armor go, if I go on a film set now, I'm in a collarless shirt. I can openly, they know what I've done. They've read my books and they accept me for, I'm that stunt goes into that stuff. He does all this. And they ask questions about it. They're interested.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not their thing, they can eye roll and get on with their day. It doesn't, usually the fact that I'm with these people, they know and like me for who I am. Not for somebody I'm pretending to be. And it's incredibly liberating and just effortless when you're in that place.
All of this just makes me, think we just don't know ourselves and we don't know our capabilities as human beings. I mean, and it's just because, we're not raised learning these things. We're not raised, understanding, energy and, breathing techniques and, our nervous system, resetting and that sort of thing. And because we're not raised that way, because we're not taught that way, it comes across as, something strange to us. But, talking to you, talking to other people, the conversation is the same. We're energy and we're, complex beings and we don't have to be reactive and we can, sit back and kind of observe ourselves and our situations before we respond. I mean, there's just so much to us, and as an entrepreneur, it's so much of our journey is not predictable. Even though we might say, hey, next year I want to earn $1 million or $10 million or whatever that is, it's a goal. It's not something that we can say, okay, that's happening. It's because there are just too many things that can happen between now and next year. So I'm really grateful, for everything that you shared here. One last question I have for you is the name of the show obviously is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. And of course, you're familiar with Relentless. Everybody defines winning in whatever, however they want to, which is absolutely fantastic. The difficulty that some people face is maintaining that relentless pursuit. So my question for you is, what would you recommend to someone so that they maintain that relentless pursuit?
Well, it's an excellent question. I would say that you need to make sure, that phrase, careful what you wish for.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself why you're pursuing this thing in order to be able to pursue it relentlessly. Why do you want that thing? Somebody wants $10 million. Why is that then? Well, because it's 10 million, it's 9 more than I made. But why? Like, what are they trying to prove? Who are they proving it to? What do they actually want? And unpack that first. Because if they want that to show off to a competitor who they've disliked and they want to be better than them, or a million other scenarios that aren't grounded and real and authentic and they don't really know, they're kind of oftentimes have an inferiority complex or again, low self-worth. They're out to prove something. They got turned down by some girlfriend 20 years ago and they never got over it. And some weird things when you hypnotize somebody and you go back and you find the core of these things. It's never ceases to amaze. Ask yourself what you really, really want and make sure you're absolutely aligned with it. In other words, you would do this if you won the lottery tomorrow. This is something you're so in love with doing that you will put, and being relentless will just come all by itself, natural as breathing in.
Yeah. I understand that why. That's so foundational. Good stuff. You have a giveaway for our audience. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things we're talking about, I'm encouraging people to stop and take stock, to consider and ponder, just to stop thinking of the past and the future for a minute and become present and look at where they're at now. So I've developed a tool. It's free. It's called the Alignment Compass. It's just a download, series of questions, things to ponder, a little chart to fill in. It's a very quick thing to do, but I have some great feedback. It's something that I offer to a client as part of their journey, their onboarding. We go through this Alignment Compass and it's quite surprising. It just, there's a few aha moments. So if anybody's not 100% certain, 100%, this is exactly everything in my life is perfect career, relationships, finances, health. If any of them are in question, I'd urge any listeners that are curious just to download this freebie, fill it in, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So it's the Alignment Compass, and surprise, it's at www.alignmentcompass.com.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, work with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm across all social media, but if they just go to curtisrivers.com, my details are on there to reach out to me or to book on a call, and open to jumping on a call with anybody who feels that they need some help in their life.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise. Absolute pleasure, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.